My name is Douglas Wong. My title is known as Grand Master of Kung Fu.
I'm Sheila Briggs, and I'm a professor of religion and gender studies at the University of Southern California. Shamanism is the belief in a world of spirits, in fact, in many worlds of spirits. You see the universe is made up of many different realms. And in our ordinary, everyday realm, the realm in which these people live, who are often semi-nomadic or nomadic people, hunters and gatherers, they see spirits in the animals and in the trees, and everything has a spirit. Gabrielle. The shaman is an expert at communicating with the spirits. She is endowed with the ability to travel to other realms, to the heavenly realms, to the underworld, to the land of the dead, to distant spaces. They undertake these journeys for many reasons. In their societies, they are the healers, and people believe in modern and undoubtedly in ancient Siberia that if you were sick, your spirit had been taken from you, your soul had been taken from you, and the shaman had to get it back. Evil shamans are particularly connected with the underworld, and so the portrayal of Alti trying to control the souls of the dead is not out of line with the evidence that we have.
These powers you're after, you want to know what they are.
There is this scene where Xena and Alti are beside this campfire.
I want to tap into the heart of darkness. The sheer naked will behind all craving.
This is the evil shaman speaking.
Help me. And I'll make you a destroyer of nations.
One of the interesting things about the portrayal of Alti and her struggle with Xena is that in the literature on shamanism, the evidence that we have stories of combats between shamans. And the shamans conduct their combat through the spirit world. Normally, they take on the forms of animals. But the way that shamans dress is often representing an animal. And you see that in both the costumes of Xena and Alti. At the beginning of the show, Xena kills a deer. Deer are important because these are one of the animals that are the spirit helpers of shamans. So she uses the deer to make a shaman's costume. On the top of Xena's head, there are the antlers. The antlers not only represent the reindeer, but the actual tines of the antlers are containers for the shamanic spirits. Then you look at the apron that she's wearing. And although it's rather difficult to see, in the center of it, there's this skull. And what it's supposed to be is a vulture. Like in the script, it's called a vulture medallion. Birds in general are important because shamans often depicted as flying to the other realms. First in her quest to unite with Gabrielle, and then later in her quest to defeat Alti, Xena flies to other realms. Another sign of the shaman's power on the fringes of Xena's coat. The fringes represent feathers. And again, we have reconstructed from what we know of ancient Siberian garments that they also had fringes, and they do today. Now, what I find very interesting is how they portrayed where Xena rescues the slain body of an Amazon from the henchmen of Altic. She builds a funeral pyre, and she's not just mourning for the dead Amazon, she's obviously mourning for Gabrielle, who's at this point dead after season 3. Now, in the original script, they had wanted Xena to carry a drum and be drumming, because that's one of the reasons why shamans were able to enter trance. You don't see her beating the drum, but notice the music. They have the drum and they have the chanting. So although they couldn't get it visually into the episode, they got it musically, in terms of the music, into the episode. Now, in the fight scenes with the Berserker, and in that final fight scene, Altis' power is related to the ability to make her remember her past and see her future in battle. Again, it was creative, artistic license in one sense, but there was real continuity with what we know shamans claim they could do, that they could, in battle, presumably use that against people.
Tuck the spirits of Xena and her friends into the deepest recesses of their minds and drive them to their death.
Xena portrays Siberian shamanism as connected to Siberian Amazons.
Amazons arise.
Are we dead? No, you're just in a trance. Come on.
Until very recently, most scholars said that the Amazons were fantasy, that they were male Greek fantasies or anxieties about warrior women. But in fact, there was a lot of contact between Greeks and a people whom they called Scythians. When the Greeks talked about Scythians, they were talking about a culture which they encountered on their northern frontier, in the area around the Black Sea. That was an area which was populated by people who shared very similar cultures and who probably shared shamanism, or at least the remnants of earlier shamanic practices. We do have at least evidence of female warriors amongst the Scythians. In the 60s and 70s, we began to find the burial mounds, what in this whole region from the Black Sea to Siberia called kurgans. And in that we found the remains of women who had to be warriors. These female warriors are called by the archaeologists who dug them up, Amazons. They were buried with weapons. They had the signs of blows to the head. They had arrows in knees and other places. So these are women who died in battle. Most people think that what we really have is a society in which women, unlike Greek women of that period, do not stay at home, but actually, they go out, they hunt, they go to war. So it's really difficult to know where the Greek male fantasy ends and where the real fact begins. But there are certain features of Xena Warrior Princess's portrayal of the Amazons which it may turn out to be more historically accurate than some people think. Obviously, the Amazons, to some degree, play the role of eye candy. That's also the role that they played in ancient Greece. These half-naked women warriors were very much a stock of ancient male Greek fantasy. But when we actually find the graves of women warriors, we find that 70% of these women warriors are young women between 16 and 30. In ancient society, most people did not reach old age. We're talking about very warlike tribes. A lot of women, if they were engaged in fighting, would have fallen in battle. Most women in an Amazon tribe would have been young. So they got that right, probably by chance. Although there is material about women, and there's a lot of material that has been written about women in the ancient world, there's just a lot of things we don't know. And it's refreshing to see a show that creates an ancient past for women, which we may not have actually had, but we certainly would have liked to have had.
All that type of movements, like floating in the air, that was part of the art, what they call developing what's called the qi or qigong. Some of that fantasy, again, is based on reality that the Chinese believe in back in the old days of fantasy.
Your friend you told me about, Alma, her powers come from denial, from self-sacrifice, from the light.
It's interesting, the reference to La Ma, because China also had its influences from shamanism. In the Chinese descriptions of shamans, we have them, with descriptions of flying shamans.
Again, a lot of this type of knowledge is lost because not that many people can develop or learn it.
That's not for people like you and me.
Kung Fu is a Chinese martial arts system that's in practice for over 5,000 years. It has very long, rich history throughout China, which was developed there first and then brought over to Okinawa, to Japan, and then to Hawaii, then eventually to the United States. I was David Carradine's first instructor. I started with the Kung Fu Movie of the Week in 1970. And that's when I started to develop into the movie business. Xena was a break-off of the Hercules series, but they wanted to make something different. When they showed it to me in the beginning, they didn't want anything to be like any type of gladiator fighting or cowboy fighting. They were more into what's known as, at that time, the Hong Kong style of fighting. So that was my specific style, was Chinese martial arts. So they showed me a bunch of different Hong Kong clips, the movies, jumping in the air, floating, stuff like this. So I said, well, that's my style. I can definitely train them. My main concern in training them was to teach him different type of movements that made him look good on the screen, but also for safety value. In other words, they had to learn how to fall, how to take certain punches, how to roll with it, how to look good on the camera. When you teach an actors, there's not much time. Some people I have up to 6 months to work with, and other ones you may only have 2 or 3 days. The way I train them is to find out what type of sports they're into, what type of movements they're involved in, and I adapt those type of movements into the martial art moves. And so if they have tennis lobs or anything like this, we have backhand or forehand, I adapt the movements of the sword that way, so they can make it look good that way.
Nice job. What is it? Be patient. You'll find out soon enough.
There's a lot of difference between movie martial arts and real martial arts. Just even the action of a simple punch is very different. In the traditional martial art, when you throw a punch, you want to penetrate through a target. But in movie martial arts, you don't want to penetrate, because if you hit the person, you're going to hurt them. So we have to teach them how to pull, 2 to 3 inches away from the main target, so you're not really hitting. So in the real martial art fighting, when we do it, when we kick or hit, we're trying to drive through the target. So that's one of the things we try not to teach. So you have to teach them about angles, you have to teach them about safety. So any type of the motion that we did, even with the weapon striking, there's only so much movement that you can do with the weapons without avoiding it. And so a lot of times, you know, when they did the fighting, we had to use make-believe weapons, but it looks like the real weapon. So if it did hit you, it wouldn't hurt. But in like the real martial arts, I mean, everything when we do the real one, I mean, you draw blood, you're hurting. But also that's the part of the other martial art. When you learn the real martial art, the person that you're hurt, you must also learn to heal. So that's all part of the martial art. We also do the healing part. So we dislocate a finger, we have to put it back in there. If you strain them back, we have to be able to massage and put it back in there. We realign your muscles, realign the bones, do the tendons, we do acupressure, acupuncture, there's herbal medicine. So there's much more deeper insight into the martial art where when you're just learning from the movies, you're just doing just superficial type movements.
A little more pressure and you can kill someone with that move.
When I first started training for Universal Studios the Hercules series, I started Kevin Sorbo, then eventually I started training Xena or Lucy Lawless, and I also trained a lot of their guest stars. Hudson, the one who played Kalisto. Some of them they had to use short weapons, long weapons, and some we didn't know what type of weapons. Like for Hudson, she had the scene where she had to climb on the ladder and fight from there, and I had to eventually get out of the ladder. We had to climb on top and do some jumps on top, spins on there, kicks on there. We had a lot of different things on there, and she was pretty good on there. You know, she picked up a lot of different movements. When I trained Kevin Sorbo and Lucy Lawless, they were both excellent students. I mean, on Lucy, when I train people, I try to train them from the left side and the right side. So I always start with the right side because most people are right-handed dominant, so that's where we use the weapons. When I used to train Lucy, everything on the right hand, within 5 minutes she sits there, meditate for a couple seconds, she sticks the weapon in the left hand and she started doing it on her own. And she was just amazing. And my wife helped me train her, and she was just adapted so many different ways. I mean, her mind was so wide open. She learned so easily. She could adapt to it. She could jump. She could kick. She could fall. She did all the flexibility exercises that we gave her. I gave her meditation exercise to help collect her thoughts also before she did anything. And we gave her different type of training exercise to help develop her body, you know, tone it up more also. Most of the training when they came to me was at my studio in Northridge. We trained here, then they were flown to New Zealand because everything was done on location over there. In the series, I trained mainly what was called the long weapons or the pole weapons. That's what I started, was called the basic staff. That's 6 foot tall. You can add any type of bladed weapon on the end, so you go into your lances, your spears, different type of material. Main things when I taught them was how to do the figure eights, how to spin it over the head, how to fight against another person, the timing that you have to work on it. So there's different patterns that we work on. I taught them on the swords, the action weapons that we had. First with wooden weapons before we worked with the metal weapons. And then later on, they made them more props, which are much lighter. Swords are straight line. That's what they use on the series itself, where the Chinese all have the curved swords, which are a little bit different. So, because there's one backside, which is not a cutting edge, but you use for blocking. Hers, we had to teach her either way, because they weren't sure what the props are going to be like. So I had to teach her blocking with the dull side and cutting with the actual side. And in real technique, you're not supposed to bring the object over your head, because if it came down, it would chop your head off. So again, that was the Chinese technique. I'm not doing that. But for the movie, or for the series, you have to change the rules on there, because you have to bring a lot of different weapons over your head. And that's why in a lot of Chinese movies, you see it, in the action ones, they're not bringing certain swords over their head, because if they know if it came down, it would chop them in the head. So only the curved sword, if you actually see the movies, will go over your head, but the straight sword would stay down here. Most of the fight scenes they have are very, very good. They do put a lot of good timing in there. They made everything more believable. Of course, certain things that they put on, what they added the wire work, you know, that's a little bit different, you know. So some of that is more fantasy. Again, a lot of this deep martial art that you're talking about, the stuff that they do, the floating, is that you have to be able to learn this before you start having sex. And you know how many people nowadays can do that. But there are a few masters that I know that do the levitation. They can actually do it, float 2-3 feet off the ground, but they won't let anybody film them. But seeing it happen. So, you know, all this stuff is based on reality. Most of the people that I train, they would ask, how would you go into this? Like Lucy would ask more about the meditation, Kevin would ask a lot about that. I taught them more about the tradition, so that they can do some reading on their own or call me and discuss certain things. I used to get letters from them all the time where they call me when someone said, everything you show me works. I mean, there's nothing that they could throw at me or come at me that I couldn't prevent or couldn't avoid. And that's the main thing I enjoyed hearing from them, because that was my job, was to help them foresee whatever came, they were always going to be safe. That was the whole thing.
Fight them! You could fight them! Come on, you gotta believe it! Will it to happen! Get him out! Come on!